Grasl, I get it right eventually, who is a playwright as part of our new commission program, the Hear Us Now Play Commission. We were lucky enough to commission 6 new writers, and we are funding this program in part by the Leon and Margot Embry Fund for New American Plays. Appreciative of that. And before we start our chat, Jason, I just wanted to first take a moment to acknowledge that as San Diegans, we live and work on the unceded land of the Kumeyaay, the Sueño, Coahuila, and Cupeño peoples. And I ask that you join me in acknowledging these original custodians of the land in which we are living, both past, present, and future.
I do easily acknowledge that.
Thank you. Okay, well, first, I would hope that you can tell us a little bit about yourself and what got you into playwriting itself. Yeah.
Sure. Side note, I'm in Los Angeles on the original lands of the Tonga, and so want to acknowledge that. So I'm Jason Grasl. I thank you for deciding to commission me for the play that I'm writing. I am actor, playwright, theater director, blah, 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 lots of hyphenates. Blackfeet, Native American. I have been a playwright now, I guess. This is my 4th full-length play that I'm writing. It'll be the 3rd one to get produced. I have been working alongside, or as part of Native Voices at the Autry in Los Angeles for 13 years now, almost 13 years. Which, for people that don't know, is the only fully equity theater in America dedicated to telling stories by and about Native, First Nations, and Indigenous peoples of the Americas. Yeah, I'm excited to be able to tell this story, and I think it's a unique one that hasn't been breached. So, yeah.
Well, share a little bit about the normal force, which is what your play is currently called that we are commissioning. So tell us a little bit about it so we know.
Yeah, so it's a near future sci-fi play. I have an undergraduate degree in electrical engineering, so the science geek aspect of it is an easy lane.
Scientist turned playwright.
Well, that's yeah. I guess background. I have an undergraduate degree in electrical engineering, a master's degree in theology and pop culture, and then in between all the theater and performance background. So yeah, the different parts of the mind there. But yeah, this play actually originated as an idea of my reaction to the 2016 election and everyone's attitudes in discourse after that. The name of the play, The Normal Force, refers to, in physics, in Newtonian physics, every physical object on Earth experiences a normal force. Your mass, great, it's physics lesson. We're just gaining viewers everywhere. The force of your mass down on the Earth experiences an equal normal force up. It's expected, it's normal, but it's only the amount that you're exerting down in the opposite direction. It's why you don't sink into the ground or jump off the ground. You expect it, but just the discourse just seemed to stop being normal after the 2016 election. So that got me thinking about how could there be a science related play here, and a common thought amongst natives all the time is, with many tribes more dire than others, is the proliferation of the tribe, because the genocide that's happened, the forced relocations, it's not always easy to keep the tribe going. And so what if there was science that could say, hey, we can do this, but it'll be controversial, and will you really be native or not? So there's, again, a controversial subject that someone might broach. And then the science of it, who's gonna be okay with that or not be okay with that, and how are they gonna react to it? Again, this lack of normal discourse. So just having all these factors come in and fight with each other and see where we stand, and at the end, is that like what is the way forward? How do we get back to a place where there's normal discourse?
And just for practicality, as a synopsis, the piece takes place at UCSD, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
With a person who is.
Oh, I know. I'm sorry. Yes. Sure.
And you're going to fill in.
Yeah. The lead. I was waiting to see where you were leading me. No, the lead character is a PhD candidate in particle physics at UCSD. Their physics program, they have people on staff who were there at CERN when they discovered the Higgs boson particle, which it just furthers the idea of what the often miscalled the God particle. But anyway, it's a leading physics program at UCSD, so I thought it fit perfectly there. At the same time, natives in STEM fields aren't really seen. A lot of times, another issue we struggle with as natives is being considered anything outside of the past. And so to see someone in a leading mind in theoretical areas of science, I think is something the world needs to see, because they exist, but no one expects to see it. And hopefully to inspire other Native youth who would consider, who don't know which way to go, or think that they're stuck or relegated to certain vocations, that no, you can be whatever you want. It's not just what culture thinks you should be.
Yeah, the examples are so important.
Mm-hmm.
And then also within that framework of the play, there's an element of DNA for the tribes. Can you explain how that works as well?
Yeah. Well, part of this is going to be the science fiction element of it.
Okay.
But given we could go extinct, or we're always nearer to it than other populations, what if science offered a way where it was possible, but it was possibly artificial, or like, yeah, your tribe will proliferate, but it's in this test tube. What does that mean? Obviously, that'd be highly controversial. You'd again be redefining what a tribe is, as the U.S. government has continued to do for a few hundred years now, and colonial governments before the U.S. government. So what makes you Indian? What makes you not? Most Native plays at some point boil down to an identity, themes of identity, because we question ourselves all the time. We've been tried to be redefined and broken down and eliminated and assimilated, and there's only so many ways that can happen before someone might break.
This question kind of goes into that. Maybe that's the same answer, but are there other ideas or themes that you kind of find yourself returning to in your work and in your writing?
Well, my wife would say that there's just a different question I'm asking of myself in every play. One was, human male in relationship. Like, what does it mean to be in a relationship? The next one was, what does it mean to be in a family? What does it mean to be be traditional but be contemporary? So there's, ultimately I'm asking myself these questions and trying to explore that. This one, I suppose, would be, there's elements of what does it mean to be real, which I suppose is a really large theme that most plays could cover, but
specific to you. So I think it'll be a bite-sized, manageable exploration.
Sure. All done in 120 pages.
No problem.
Right. Yeah, there's some
If you can explain dark matter to me so that I actually understand it, you will have achieved some great goals.
I'm still trying to explain it to myself right now.
Why theater? You know, I've seen, or at least I've read your Lying with Badgers, for example, where you utilize a lot of puppetry as I take it, spirit animals that sort of come in and interact with the folks too. But what is it about the medium of theater that is exciting for you as opposed to writing a book or a film or something else?
Well, it's obviously what I'm very familiar with, but I think, and it's probably a common answer, but it's, you know, the truest for me is just the instant feedback of the crowd. That you know when you have them in the palm of your hand. I mean, at least I think I have, certain, maybe on less occasions than I think, but as from an actor standpoint, but from, you know, the playwright standpoint too, you want to make sure you're affecting them and you can hear that. And I think it's much more powerful that way. Not that film and TV are powerful or whatever, but the live element is really where you just hit them right where they are.
Have you had any plays where you have acted or written through this new current Zoom medium? And how is it different in terms of, obviously there's not that immediate reaction or that immediate feedback to give you?
No, there's not. I did. So I was actually commissioned to write a short play for a theater company up here in LA for their pandemic short play festival, which is just, you know, something that's inspired you about our current situation. And so it was streamed live on Facebook Live. So the reactions were basically like, you know, the heart emojis or the laughing emojis coming up and being like, okay, what does that count for? How many people are actually doing that? Now it feels like it's almost TV Nielsen ratings with that. But yeah, it's a whole lot different. And I've acted in a workshop as well of a play, and you just don't know, are people reacting, or are they just trying to support by being ha 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 in the chat box? I can't wait till we get back to, not that this can't work as a version of the stories we're telling, but obviously the live aspect, that's what it's all about for me.
That's where the heart of it is, right? We all want to get back to it. Speaking of COVID and this world in which we live in right now, is there anything that you will take out of it that you want to keep doing, that you've discovered like, oh, this is really working for me?
I guess a funny thing is that I never realized how much less I used to wash my hands. And I don't know, I made a joke.
Hygiene is important now.
Hygiene is important, not that it wasn't before, but I would think maybe just as like a male, that's maybe more of a male thing. We're like, no, I'm clean enough. Nope, gonna keep washing as much as possible.
I'm gonna set you up for a PSA with my son so that you can teach him about it too.
You see, it starts younger, but you never want to clean unless you absolutely have to. No, I think just valuing, there's a value for interaction and community and connection that we're just not getting the same way we used to. And so hopefully that will imprint itself enough on me that I won't forget about it and take it for granted once we're able to be at some level of coming together again. Yes.
I was curious how you envision your role and responsibility as a storyteller, especially in today's complicated landscape.
Well, I mean, I think it's always been, as a storyteller, to challenge. You know, it's not just about the thrills and the laughter and all that. That's just what gets them to the point at the end, but to challenge. And I think it's much more important as, you know, as we are hopefully progressing through this justly civil unrest portion of where we're at now with the pandemic. I think there's not more pressure, but there's more weight on not getting it right, but presenting those stories, especially from a Native point of view, where our stories seem to actually be getting noticed and being valued outside of our communities, because that just leads to hopefully a better understanding of us all living together in community and respecting each other. Hopefully, I mean, that's the pains we're starting to see that people aren't necessarily comfortable with right now, and hopefully we can break through that. I think that's an answer. Yeah.
It sure is. Thank you. Is there, as a Native American playwright, are there hopes that you have for Native American writers moving forward in American theater?
Oh, yes. I mean, I've met several just through the hub that Native Voices is. There's so many talented and unique voices out there with stories to tell, and we deserve to be on stages that aren't just Perseverance in Alaska and Native Voices here and in Minnesota. They need to be on, yes, they need to be in front of a subscription base that wouldn't be used to seeing this. And it's not that like, oh, hey, we're someone too. They're, I think I wrote this to you at some point where it's like, yeah, they're Native stories, but they're human stories. And they're all, at its core, it's going to break down to that, and you're going to be able to relate to it and hopefully leave from the story a challenged person. Changed, that's after, but challenged, hopefully.
Am I putting you on the spot if I ask you to name some of your fellow Native American writers that you admire? Sure.
Well, the Trailblazers, I mean, Larissa Fasthorse is killing it right now with her Thanksgiving play. Mary Catherine Nagel, whose work I've had the pleasure of performing several different shows. Vera Starbird in Alaska, she made, I think, Kilroy's List with the Native adaptation of Pride and Prejudice, which I had pleasure of working on a few weeks ago as a workshop. Vicky Ramirez, Randy Reinholtz who just retired last week after 26 years founding Native Voices. He adapted Measure for Measure into a mid 1800s Blazing Saddles meets Shakespeare story that was up at OSF. Frank Katas out of Alaska. There's many. Delana Studi, who's our new artistic director. She has a one-woman show where telling a story of how she and her dad walked the northern route of the Cherokee Trail of Tears, which toured across the U.S. I mean, all unique, strong voices telling our stories. And again, they're not stories that are just like, let's rehash something from the 1800s. They are vital current stories about the Native American diaspora, First Nations, Indigenous diaspora.
Thank you for not feeling on the spot with that question. I think it's important to name people so people can discover new folks as well. If they haven't heard about before. What else can I ask you? What else can I ask you? I feel like you are very succinct in your responses. Thank you so much.
I could like just do a stream of consciousness the next few answers and see where no. I'm kidding.
That would be exciting. By other plays in terms of, like I said, Lying with Badgers. How do you and your other ones, if you could share, because I haven't read those ones. But how do you come to kind of combining the Native voice with your own personal voice and how they intermix? But I feel like the stories that I've seen from you tend to definitely have a like spirit to it that is coming, not a religion necessarily, but you know, the background of and the culture of the Native American stories. And so how is that interwoven into the piece in a theatrical way?
How is my Native perspective woven into the story?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think no matter matter what the story is, if I'm writing it, it's going to be my native perspective, which again is unique. It's not the same as anyone else's. So I'm not the voice of any specific thing other than me. But I think it's just, for instance, there's a bit of an outsider looking in occasionally, or someone who's left in my stories. I was adopted by a white family as a baby, so I had to come into my culture on my own, without the benefit of parents or other family, guiding me along the way. So I think from my perspective, that's something that has been explored in my stories. Trying to prove yourself. Yep. And certainly, while that's unique to me, there are plenty of stories of urban Indians or people that left the reservation or were adopted out like me. So that's a common occurrence, again, that a lot of natives can be like, oh yeah, I know someone who had that experience. But I think
how was that education? Like, where did you find the most useful, where did you find home in that part of the education?
Well, it's just I guess the home is diving as deep as you can into it. I guess from the exposure level to that, and relating to it, or how do I fit into this, or and if you believe in not fate or destiny, but just how your uniqueness and attributes of yourself and genetic, the show my wife works on is a medical show, and she's like, no, everything's genetics. There's so little that's nurture compared to what we think is nurture. It's all nature. Like, thinking about how I relate and am connected to that story, that's just been, that's been remarkable for me to just feel that connection. At the same time, like many, I keep saying the term urban Indians, but it's natives that have left and lived in the city. We did find a home at Native Voices. They're artists anyway, in Los Angeles, and so there's an element of family there. Just tons of extended artistic cousins. And there's freedom to explore and be vulnerable, and support each other in our own journeys and struggles, and because it seems to be that the contemporary Native American Indigenous experience is always complicated.
Well, and you are an actor as well as a writer, so is that complicated as well in terms of your sort of relationship with writing and with theater, being on both sides of that same coin?
Oh, I would like to think it helps the writing, from the standpoint of giving something to the actors that they're gonna like chewing on. And the first play that I wrote that got produced, I was in it. I wrote it for me. The Line with Badgers, I initially had plans of me being the lead, but we were still, it's a new play, so you want to make sure you get it right before you do the vanity thing and just being, hey, see this thing I wrote about me, for me. So I love the change in perspective of being also the playwright, different from the actor, because it's not so I don't feel like I'm giving something away that I don't feel will be expressed in a way that, like I relish the chance to see what others can do with what I'm trying to convey. And so, yeah, I certainly am not like, oh God, don't screw this up, and be like, here, show me how I can improve this. Is that kind of what you were asking?
Yeah, is part of why you became a playwright to get roles? I mean, you've mentioned several times, like, I'm writing it for me, that sort of thing. I mean, is it like, hey, I need something that I can actually dig into, or?
Yeah, there's part of it is that is trying to create your own work. Um, I think you also, if you're not seeing stories that appeal to you, give it a shot. And I'm not saying, and that's certainly not to disrespect what playwriting is. It's not like, well, the acting isn't going well, I guess I'll just rely on writing. That's not what I'm saying at all.
Easy fallback career, right?
Right. Yeah. My wife, I do not disrespect the fact that she, has cultivated this career as a writer. I have written, but certainly not to the acclaim that she has. And so I don't want to disrespect that. But yeah, it's a lot about like, well, this story doesn't exist, this type of story, or this character, or this theme that I thought of, this thing that's been scratching at me. I think I want to try telling a story about it.
And many people come to playwriting from different avenues in terms of training and education. What was your road to here?
Well, I mentioned the backgrounds in engineering. I grew up in Detroit, and in a blue collar situation where my dad worked in the automotive industry, my adoptive father, and so they like to funnel you into the auto industry as much as possible because it's a safe, stable career. And so, but I knew I wanted to be a performer early on. And I remember I saw Raiders of the Lost Ark when I was little, and I was like, "Oh, I want to do that." And my dad was like, "You be an archaeologist?" I'm like, "No, just that." Yeah. And it didn't work out just because he was never going to pay for a degree in theater. So I went to school, got my engineering degree, and immediately started studying Second City in Detroit and at the Purple Rose Theater, Jeff Daniels Theater in Michigan, pretty soon after I graduated from college, because I knew what I wanted to do. And then I moved to LA, and as my day job, I went to grad school. So I took out loans for my day job right when I moved here. And from that, I didn't even get my MFA. I just decided I wanted a better understanding of my faith. One, to let it inform how I was going to do my art. And two, because I grew up in the Midwest, which has a certain brand of Christianity that I never really vibed with. So I wanted to go closer to the source and have that understanding of it, which is why the degree was theology and pop culture. So and in between, like I said, all the theater and performance. So that was my educational journey to playwriting.
If you could give advice to another young playwright, especially Native American playwright, what would it be now?
Don't settle for no. Whatever your experience is, it's yours and it's valid. And as applied to any art, like dig into that, because that's the sooner you find that in your voice and your experience, the more easily you're going to be gonna tell a story that resonates, because if it resonates for you and it's personal, then someone else is going to see the humanity of it and help cultivate it.
We hope for many more.
Yes.
Many more voices to pop up in the world. Well, thank you. I am super excited for the work that you're working on, and get to help develop it and see where it leads. Hopefully to our stages is the goal.
That's the goal. Yes.
And yeah, is there anything else you want to say before we go?
No, just thank you again for the opportunity. I hope we had one or two people watching us on Facebook Live. And
it's the groupies.
Yes, exactly. The SD rep groupies. But Yeah, hopefully everyone's excited for a sci-fi play, because that's what I'm aiming to write.
That's it. Gotta do it.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you later. Bye.
Bye.